Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of Charisma Talks, my brand new show where I get to interview amazing business leaders and owners and ask them all about their expertise and how public speaking relates to that. So, we're going to be digging in to all kinds of stuff. And I'm so pleased and honored to have my very first guest, Danielle Clarke, branding expert, who I got to see live a few months ago speaking at the Content to Clients event here in Manchester. And you're on a panel, weren't you, Danielle, talking
Yeah.
about personal branding? I think that was possibly one of your first times speaking to a large audience. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, yeah, I've done speaking in terms of talking to big groups of people, but that was in a lecturing capacity. So
Mm,
it's different. And I was having this conversation with someone recently. They were like, "Oh, you're used to speaking, you do your lecturing," and I'm like, well, everyone there already sees you in this position of authority.
hmm
They're paying their uni fees, they're paying a lot of money to be in that room, and it's kind of expected that I just know what I'm talking about.
mm.
Whereas when you're in a room full of business people, that's not necessarily the mindset that everyone's gonna have, and there might be
Mm,
people that maybe have different perceptions of what you're talking about, maybe don't agree and all that sort of thing. So it is different. It is definitely
mm.
different. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, well, that would be something that I'd love to dive into a little bit more.
Mm.
But before we kick things off, just for anyone who hasn't connected with you on LinkedIn or hasn't come across you, would you give us a kind of 60 seconds of who you are, what you do, who you help, etc., etc.?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Danielle Clarke. I'm a brand strategist and I help founders, coaches, and consultants that are on a mission to build purposeful brands. So brands that are helping people improve the way they think, the way they feel, the way they move, and maybe don't understand brand or what that is. I help them use their brand to do that. So through brand, attracting the right customers, understanding who you are, how you're going to position yourself, and the value that you really bring to the people that you're trying to help. So yeah, I work with people to do that, and I love it.
Amazing. Yeah, perfectly put. So I'd love to kick off really just by setting some groundwork in terms of brand. A lot of people listening to this are going to be familiar with these concepts, but I find even a lot of my clients in the business world who perhaps aren't as active on LinkedIn and haven't really been doing so much outreach, they still don't really understand necessarily what the brand is for. They might have a feeling that they know they need one. They've been told that this is important, but they perhaps don't really understand crystally clear why that is. So, can I ask you, Danielle, in your opinion, what is the main reason that founders, business owners, etc., need to have that personal brand?
Yeah, I think there's lots of talk, isn't there, about personal brand at the moment, and it's kind of ironic that it's so difficult to explain and that branding is
Yeah.
so difficult to talk about. But the best way I think to explain it, in my opinion, is okay. So, for example, you Ed,
Mm,
when people hear your name or think about you, they'll have a set of beliefs, feelings, associations that will immediately come to mind when they think of you. Um, when you're, for example, if you're in an office and maybe someone's trying to describe you, or maybe they've used your name, but someone doesn't know your name, they'll be like, "Oh, Ed," and they'll be like, "Ed, I'm not sure." Oh, the guy that does public speaking, and then they might go,
mhm,
"Oh, right, okay," or the guy from
mm,
Manchester, like,
mm.
"Oh, okay," the guy, yeah, tallish guy, long hair, and then there it'll create that connection. Then something that you said resonates with them and they go, "Oh, yeah, okay, I know who you're talking about now." It
Yeah.
happens all the time. Now, sometimes those things can be, hopefully, things that you believe to be true, things that if someone were to describe you in that way, you'd be like, "Yeah, okay, that sounds like me. That's how, if someone's talking about me, that's what I'd like them to say."
Hmm.
But there might be some instances where someone might describe someone else and they might not say the things that you want them to say.
Right. Okay.
So it could be you might be talking about someone in the office and it might be, "Oh, yeah, the guy that's always late," and then they go, "Oh, yeah, I know who you mean," or "The guy that's always stealing the milk,"
Yeah.
like, and those are the associations that people have with you.
Mm.
So when we're talking about personal brand, we are ultimately talking about what do people say about you when you're not in the room?
Mm.
When someone thinks about you, what comes to mind? What associations and attributions do they have with you? Now, you can, to some extent, start to influence that and
Hmm.
impact it through what you put out into the world. I wanted to be ultimately I wanted to be known for branding. Okay, I wanted to people to think about brand and think about me. And so I started putting out lots and lots of content around brand into the world, onto LinkedIn, through my podcast, etc. And it started to happen. Like the other week, someone introduced me and they called me the branding queen. They were like, "Oh yeah, this is Danielle, the branding queen." And I was like, "Wow."
Not a bad little name to have,
I'll
tagline.
take that. I will take
Yeah.
that. But it's taken time, but it's starting to happen. People are making these associations with me because of what I've been putting out into the world. And that's
Mm.
what personal brand and building a personal brand is all about.
That is such a great explanation, and I love the simplicity of that. It's what people think about you when your name comes to mind, and it's those associations between you and the feelings and the things that people associate with you, right? Perfect. Love that. Makes it so much more simple. Um, so obviously, I can see the benefit in my life of I want people to be having a conversation where they say public speaking, and the next thought is Ed. And so that's obviously going to have lots of different benefits for me and a bit my business. What would you say though for people who are maybe a little bit behind the curve of work, because we've both been doing this for a year or two or three now, for people who are just starting out, or maybe they've already got a business and they're already successful, but they haven't built the brand, the personal brand behind that, what extra value is that going to give them? And after that, what are the fundamental things they need to start thinking about to create those associations in people's minds? You mentioned putting out content. Is there any other key things that you would say, right, definitely work on this to begin with?
I think it's all about deciding what it is that you want to be known for. And whether that's in so I know people that build personal brands that are employed. They're employed, they've got an employer, they've got a job, but they're still building this brand because I don't know, maybe they have a bit of a side hustle, maybe they do a little bit of consultancy work, maybe they've got a podcast or something else
Hmm.
in relation to their job, and actually building that brand is still important and their employers all for it. The value in that is that you start to become top of mind when people think about certain things, because
Yeah.
that's what brand is really. When you are in need of something, if someone's in need of a a public speaker, or they're in need of someone, I don't know, a copywriter or whatever it is, there will be people that will immediately come to mind because
Hmm.
they're fresh, and that's because they've been so visible. Visibility is credibility,
Mm.
and the more visible you are, the more people will start to remember. So I think that's a value in building a personal brand, is that whatever it is that you want to be known for, you want to be you want to be that go-to person. If you're The more visible you are, the more memorable you are. And then when
Mm.
people are ready to reach out, you'll hopefully be the person that springs to mind. Um,
Hmm.
I For me, I know that what I'm doing is working because I've had I was helping out. We were doing some bag packing on Saturday for an event that I've got this week. Um, and someone said to me, "Oh, are you?" They were like, "Oh, have we met before? Have we such and such?" And we hadn't actually met in person.
Right.
They'd seen me on LinkedIn. They saw my face pop up on um, a post in relation to this event that's coming up. And I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's probably where you've seen me." And
Hmm.
so they recognized me, but we hadn't actually met in person. So they already felt like they knew me, and they felt because they'd seen my face, they felt comfortable enough to say hello and be like, "Oh, like, have we met? Have we? I feel
Yeah.
like I recognize you." Now that probably wouldn't have happened had I not been putting out all this content, and being visible makes people more comfortable with you as well. So I think that's the value in it. And I think the first thing to do is decide what it is you want to be known for,
Hmm.
and then think about the platforms that you're going to talk about that on.
Mm.
And whether that's LinkedIn or Twitter, or maybe even in person. Maybe you decide you're just going to go to lots of networking events and decide that every time I go to a networking event, I'm going to tell everyone in there that I don't know I'm a photographer, because that's what
Yeah.
I want to be known for.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I'd start, really. Having a goal, deciding the platform, and then talking about that thing and just keep talking about it.
And again, it's like I feel like so many people overcomplicate this process and we get stuck in the weeds. And I was in this myself, kind of trying to figure out how I should message this and what is my niche. And it's really just as simple as, what do I want to be known for? Let me start speaking about that, and I will over time build that association with people. They will get to
Yeah,
know me, like me, trust me, etc. That's
yeah,
90% of it. And maybe that other little 10% is the fine tuning, which is a bit more
yeah.
detailed and whatnot. But
Mm,
it's ultimately about showing up. I wanted to ask you, Daniel, about the employed thing, because this is
mm.
something that I've run into this problem with some of my clients before, where they are worried about building their personal brand because they're employed, and they feel like the managers, seniors might be a little bit, looking down their nose, thinking, "Why are you talking about these things?" So, does it only work if their personal brand aligns with what the business that they're employed by wants, or have you seen it? Is there anything else you would add to that?
Yeah, I think it depends. It very much depends on the sector that you're in and how your role works. For example, I know when I was employed in a design agency, we had lots of different clients in all sorts of different sectors. And if I'd have gone ahead and started building up a personal brand in the way that I am, that was going to benefit me because I was looking for clients, that would obviously be a conflict of interest. And
Yeah.
I would never be able to do that because, in my contract, I can't. But for example, when I was working in house for a company, they were a bathroom retailer, and I was working in the design and marketing department. I was active on social media, and I was acquiring clients through that alongside being employed. So it wasn't a conflict of interest because they
Mm.
were they were basically aiming bathroom products at customers, it was direct to consumer. Whereas what I was doing was basically doing graphic design and branding for
Mm.
small businesses. So I think if there's not a conflict of interest and your employer is a decent employer, I don't see why it should be a problem.
Yeah.
Um, and also, I think the other way to look at it as well is if you're in a position where you want to build up your personal brand, but you're working for a really good company, you want to talk about them and you want to big them up. Well, that's brilliant for them because you become
Mm.
an advocate for the company that you're working at. And if you've got a
Mhm.
really big profile and you're talking about the amazing work that you're doing at work, the culture, the sort of projects you're working on, and that's creating interest, not only you building up your brand and making it known what it is that you do, but you're shouting and championing your
Yeah.
company, and who
Yeah.
what what decent business wouldn't want their employees being like, "Oh, I work here. We're doing this today. We've been working with these amazing clients. We've got these awesome results." Like that's a win-win. So I think it's
Sure.
just
Yeah.
all about having um yeah, being really clear about okay, what you can and can't do while you're employed, and making sure you're
Mm.
not doing anything silly. And then yeah, if you can and you have a conversation with your employer, I think any employer would be happy for you to do that, really.
So I think maybe the problem there is people either make a blanket assumption that because I'm employed, I need to just toe the company line and have a very generic, bland, presence online. And maybe that's part of their own excuses as well of not wanting to do it. And there's a reason that they get there to not have to take the action. So there's oftentimes the kind of self saboteur comes into this. But yeah, I totally agree. Anytime you've got an audience or a following or any kind of engagement, there's value in that attention that any other company would be appreciative of for sure. Just another quick question on this, Danielle, that I wanted to ask. And this again is based on a client story that I have encountered firsthand. So the situation is someone has built a successful business in one industry. They've got, 20, 30 employees, but they haven't really built their personal brand at all throughout this journey. And now they've reached this stage of maturity and they want to start building their personal brand. But the things that they wanted to talk about aren't necessarily in line with the industry that they were in, right? So they wanted to talk about leadership and business and branding, but it's not quite the same as the niche that they were building in. And they felt a little bit unsure of how to bridge that gap, both in terms of internally how the employees are going to feel. Why is such and such now talking about all of these things, and does that mean they're going to leave the business, and what's going on? But also for their audience to make that switch. So I just wondered whether you had any specific advice for that kind of situation as well.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I'd probably want to start with another question, and I'd want to know, okay, why are they now planning on talking about something that's different in relation to what they've been doing? What's the
Mm.
need?
Mm.
Um, because
I
that's
guess.
yeah, go on.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. I think from what I can remember, it was around. So if the industry that you were in is a little bit not boring, but it's not the only thing you want to talk about in terms
Mhm.
of your brand. You want to
Mm.
be associated with different things. And I think the struggle was how to bridge that gap.
Okay.
And
Okay.
maybe there's not a struggle. Maybe it's okay to just be
Yeah.
like, right, here's the business. I'm also interested in teamwork and leadership, and I'm going to start talking about these things.
Yeah. I'd say, well, why do they need to be separate things? Because when you think about your personal brand, it's we all have layers, right? And okay, there's going to be lots of different things that you care about, that you want to talk about, that you're interested in. And for me, for example, so I play field hockey. That's one thing. Um, but I'm also, I also really love walking, but I also really quite like a nice glass of red wine and chocolate.
Yeah.
you know,
Preaching to the
um,
choir.
yeah. So and like I care about health and being healthy, but I I like to indulge every now and again. I think that's okay. Someone might say that's a contradiction. How can you talk about health and well-being and then post a picture of, I don't know, Cadbury Dairy Milk? But we're not. We've got layers,
Mm.
and depending on the scenario and the situation, there's always slightly different versions of us. So I think if this person has an interest or they've talked about a particular industry for years and years and years, and I'm assuming they own this business and they've built it up over a number of years,
Mhm.
then if they're not planning on closing the business down, keep talking about that, but then start talking about the other things. Like I think that's a good thing. I know someone in my industry that they are. very well known, and they talk a lot about brand and brand strategy, which is great.
Hmm.
But I don't actually know anything about them on a
Mm,
personal level.
right. Yeah.
I they which is fine, but it would be nice to, like, I don't know I don't know, like, if someone said to me, "Oh, what are their hobbies?" I wouldn't have a clue. Or what do you think they get up to on the weekend? Or, like, I'd have no idea at all about,
Mm,
all I know is the business side of them,
yeah.
which feels it's really hard to connect with someone if that's all you know.
So would you say then, in a simplified version, that to build your personal brand, step one is to talk about the thing you want to be known for, the
Mm,
business, the whatever, and then step two is then to start introducing more personal threads of here's what I like to do outside of business, my other passions, etc.
I
And that's
think
how you
so.
build a like a wider picture.
Yeah, I think so, because the key's in the name, isn't it? Personal. And I think people forget that bit. Like, this is we're here trying to make connections with other humans, and we think that by just talking about, like, I'm not going to connect with anyone just talking about brand. I have to They want to get to know me.
Yeah.
So I have to share, and obviously, like, doesn't mean you've got to overshare. But me saying that I like Cadbury's chocolate, it's not, it's not secret. Like, it's not. I don't need to just keep that to myself. Like, I'm happy to share it. Me telling
Mhm.
everyone that I love the color purple, that I'm obsessed, which also happens to be a color of Cadbury's. There's a theme here, but, like, that's okay. So I think I think sometimes the fear is that people worry about how much to share,
Yeah,
but just
that's
share
definitely
this.
true.
Yeah, just share
And
the
I've
stuff
had
that you're
that exact
comfortable
same
with.
problem.
Have
I,
you?
Danielle, I am like
Mm,
the stereotypical banging on about public speaking for weeks on
yeah.
end, and that's it. And then just kind of making a divot of my own making where I only talk
Yeah,
about this little thing, and then I've got to crawl back out to go. I also interested in this. Oh, and here's me out not talking about public speaking. So
okay.
you can create a prison of your own making. I feel
I
if you
think
talk about the same subject for too long.
yeah, I think you gotta the difference around a business brand and a personal brand is, like, it's okay for the business to keep talking about business,
Yes.
but when it's a personal brand, it's exactly that, it's personal, so people
Mm,
want to get to know you, and it's
yeah.
important to share some of those things that then you can, like, when I mentioned red wine and chocolate, you were like, "Ah," and already there's a connection, and we share something. We're more likely to talk then. This is how people work, so
I really like how you said that then, Danielle. So, like, to contrast it, the business brand can just talk about business all day, but
mm,
that's what makes a business brand versus a personal brand, which needs this variety of other topics.
I
Love
think
that.
so. Yeah, in my opinion, absolutely. It's the reason that okay, love him or hate him, but it's the reason that Elon Musk has got a lot more followers than Tesla does.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
shares his views.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Somewhat controversial sometimes, but as a person, we've never met him, but we know who he is and what he's about and how he
Mm,
thinks and what he cares about. We know that Tesla does cars, like,
mm.
and that's okay. It's about giving people a little bit of an insight into who you are and what you do so that they can better connect with you, I think.
Perfect. Couldn't have put it better in a million years. That's honestly helped me to kind of solidify my understanding of this just in the past 20 minutes. So thanks, mate. I wanted to move on then, while we've got time, to public speaking, just before we wrap up. Where this comes into personal branding, I feel like public speaking allows people to, firstly, do a lot of these things more easily. Because if you need to be putting out stuff online and sharing things, then being able to communicate that confidently is obviously going to make it life so much easier for you. But then beyond that, being able to step on stage and communicate at scale to audiences or on video, it's just going to speed up that process of association, like mass association. So I wanted to ask you, firstly, kind of what your thoughts are on public speaking, and also knowing that you've done quite a bit of it yourself recently, how you found this in your own personal experience building your brand. So I saw you speak live at C2C, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago. I know you've done a couple of other things since then. Maybe let's start with what you've been up to recently.
Yeah, so recently, so this morning I guested on a podcast.
Right.
So just today, yeah. Normally it's the other way around, so it was really nice to be a guest and just talking all about my journey into brand. I have also spoken at an event. Yeah, so there was C2C, and then also I spoke online in a community with lots of coaches,
Hmm.
and I was talking all about branding and branding 101 and the difference between brand and branding to get them just
Right.
thinking about
Yeah.
it. So that was really cool. And yeah, podcasts, and then in terms of in-person stuff, really, um, not so much speaking, but helping to host an event this week. So um, speaking will be involved, but the spotlight won't all be on me. So yeah.
And how do you feel about that spotlight? Because this is where a lot of people fall down, where they just get
Mm.
so afraid of being the center of attention and being in the spotlight that they simply don't put themselves forward. You've been a lecturer, so it's a lot easier for you because you've had that, depth of experience of just engaging an audience. But did you still have to face a few demons to get yourself out there more recently?
Yeah, I mean, you say it's easy. I don't know. It's I save it. I've said this to the students because we have a few modules, and there's in particular there's the one which is called futures. I forgot the term, but it's all about them preparing for their future and deciding what aspect of design they want to focus on. So is it digital? Is it UX? Is it brand design? And they
Hmm.
have to put a presentation together which showcases their personal brand, which have hopefully worked on over the summer, and they've got a
Right.
logo and a name, and they've started looking at the landscape, and they have to stand up and present this in a 10-minute presentation. Like, it's the most, when we get to this module, they really, really panic, and a lot of
Mm.
them get super anxious and don't want to do it. And I start by saying to them, look, when we come in and we've got a lecture and we've got to present to you, we still get nervous. Every single one of us. We'll be checking a presentation beforehand, and we might be like, oh, is this relevant? And should we talk about this? And is this too long? And it's not all plain sailing. And we've been doing this. I mean, I was lecturing for nearly 4 years, and I still used to get a little bit nervous.
Yeah.
And it's the same with this event that's coming up. Am I okay to talk about it and
Please. Yeah,
share?
go
Yeah.
for it, mate.
So
Yeah.
it's the Birmingham Design Festival, which is a 3-day event across various locations in Birmingham, Birmingham University, and the Bond, and we've got a plethora of talks and workshops and things. And I've been asked to co-host the graphic design district. um, I mean, we've got people that have the creators of Sesame Street come in. We've got
Wow.
people that worked at Coca-Cola.
Hmm.
Like, it's some highly esteemed guests, and I'm going to help um coordinate that. And I would be lying if I said that I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be easy. Of course I'm nervous. Like,
Mm.
it's human, and I think people make this association with nerves as a bad thing. I
Yeah.
think I think nerves are a good thing because it shows that you care, right? It shows that you want to do a good job, and nerves can also mean excitement as well.
Hmm.
Um, I yeah, I like, this stuff isn't easy. You just get you just learn each time you do it. You learn something new about how you could maybe improve on something else.
Yeah.
But each time you do it, maybe a new uh I don't know. There's a new level of nervousness because I've gone from talking to a group of students to
Mm.
talking to a load of industry people and being alongside really highly esteemed people in the design world. Like that brings a new level of nervousness
Yeah,
that,
absolutely.
but that's okay because it means I'm growing and I'm learning and I'm evolving and that's the point, right?
Absolutely. Well, I agree completely, Danielle. And in my experience, I always think about someone's comfort zone is always either expanding or contracting, doesn't really stay still. So if you get comfortable speaking to a group of people in a meeting, for instance, that's great. It's a good start. But don't just keep doing that. Now find the next challenge. Now you need to go and do a town hall or you need to do a presentation. And once you've done this Birmingham Design Festival, you're going to come out, buzzing, thinking, I've done it, it's amazing. But then you're going to be thinking, what's the next thing
Yeah,
now? And you
what's
need
next?
to constantly be
Ah!
growing. So, but that is such a more empowering mindset than the person who gets stuck, frozen, where they can't take action, they can't move, they can't face fears, and the world moves on while they remain stuck. So you just have to jump in, start running, and you figure it out as you go, and then you end up enjoying the process, I think.
Yeah, which is exactly what I've done. I've just leaned into, especially since doing C2C, I had, I think this is the thing actually that I wanted to say about public speaking is that I was having conversations with people that, online via Slack and through Zoom and things, and the conversations changed once they'd heard me speak and met me. And
Mm.
there was one person in particular who I'd had a chat with, and they saw me speak at C2C, and a couple of weeks after, they got in touch, we had a call, and they became a client.
Right. Yeah. It shows the power of it, doesn't it? And it's that extra level of credibility that you get from it. And
Absolutely.
everything else that we talked about, the association, the likeness, the comfort level, because you were so and the other thing you did really well though there, Danielle, is that because you were 100% yourself on that panel and you just spoke very naturally, very authentically, it allowed people to connect with you. And I guess the other learning point is that if you are going to go and do a speech in public or do a podcast or whatever else, you need to be yourself as much as you can because that's how people will connect with you. Don't try to put on a mask or be what you think people want because it's not going to work. And that's a brilliant freeing realization to have, that you don't have to be anything else other than just who you are in a more slightly maybe more coherent and clear manner. That's it, you're done.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. I couldn't like you've articulated that so well, Ed. It is that I was super nervous about C2C. I'd never done a
Mm.
panel. I'm often, because of my podcast, I'm often the host, so I have an idea of what I'm gonna ask in order to help the conversation to flow. So again, the pressure's off slightly, but even then, some people are like, "Well, how do you host?" Um, so going and doing a panel, and I had no idea what the questions were going to be.
Yeah.
I'd never met the two other ladies that were on the panel with me. So yeah, I was feeling very nervous, but I thought to myself, okay, well, I've been asked to be here.
Hmm.
I've not invited myself. so so that helps. And even if I had have invited myself and they said yes, like sometimes you just have to remember that actually you've earned the right to be there. If you're being asked or people believe that you should be where you are, then that's because what you have to say and your opinion has value. And I
Hmm.
think it's important to remember that. So I just held on to that, and my headspace was very much, if I can have one meaningful conversation with someone following what I say, that's enough. And I've had many meaningful conversations, and like I say, it's led to me um, gaining work. So I think it's important to, yeah, be we this word authentic. I know it's been overused, but I don't know how else to put it. Like, just be yourself. That's the reason
Yeah.
you've been asked to be there.
Hmm.
And think about the one thing that you want to get from being there. Whether it's I'm gonna come out of this and be like, yes, I've done it, that's enough.
Mm, yeah. Well,
Mm.
listen, I could happily stay here for another half an hour and ask you more questions, but I know that you've got to get off and do more things. So I just want to say again, thank you so much for being my very first guest on Charisma Talks. Absolutely smashed it. Couldn't have asked for a better conversation. I just wish we had more time to go into more things. But hopefully, this has been a really good starting off point for people who haven't quite made that leap yet in terms of both building their brand, getting themselves out there, and stepping up to speak in public and to fast forward that process as well. So, for anyone who is watching, I hope you've enjoyed this. Please feel free to leave any comments below if you have any more questions, and Danielle and I can perhaps get back to you in the comments below. I haven't even checked it because I've been so absorbed. This is going to be on YouTube as well, and the replay will be available. Phyllis, thank you very much
Thank you,
for calling
Phyllis.
us both sweethearts. That is, couldn't ask for better than that, really.
That's
Um,
lovely.
Danielle, final word, please, mate. Where can people go to find out more about you, work with you, so on?
Oh, thanks so much, Ed. So yeah, I am always on LinkedIn. So come over to LinkedIn. Feel free to connect with me there. Or you can check out my website, danielleclarke.uk. And I'm also actually offering a free brand audit at the moment. So maybe wants someone to have a look at their personal brand across the platforms that they've been active on, or maybe they've got a website and they want to view a review of that. I'm offering, a free sort of check of that. So yeah, that's how you find me and connect with me.
Nice. That sounds incredibly valuable. So yeah, would recommend anyone take up that offer if you're starting out, or even if you've been doing it for a while and you need a bit of a course correct.
Yes.
Yeah, super
Yeah.
important for that as well.
Yeah.
Okay, lovely. Danielle, it's been such a pleasure, mate. Onwards for you to the Birmingham Design Festival. Best of luck. Hope it goes great. And let's catch up again soon.
Thank you so much for having me, Ed. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure. Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining in.
Bye.